All right, welcome everyone to Livestream Stars. We're talking streams and snaps for social good with Chris Strub. A lot of S's in there. Welcome to Livestream Stars. I'm Ross Brand. This is the place where we showcase talented broadcasters delivering high-quality content across Livestream platforms. And if you'd like to learn more about this show and see upcoming guests and past episodes, check out the website just for this show, livestreamstars.tv, livestreamstars.tv. And as always, Livestream Stars is brought to you by Livestream Universe. For everything live streaming, check it out, livestreamuniverse.com. And a quick update from the Livestream Universe. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern Time, we're debuting a brand new show, Livestream News. Coach Jenny will be my co-host, and we'll be talking about what Facebook and Google are up to with their live streaming strategies and plans, around some of the live streaming plans for political conventions. We'll get into that. We're also going to talk about DIY mobile video for events. Monique Johnson, who spoke at Social Media Marketing World on that topic, will be joining us to talk about that. On Thursday, Marty McPadden, formerly of ESPN, joins me for Livestream Sports. And then on Monday for Livestream Stars, Dave Kirpin of Likeable Local. He's a best-selling author, and he has a new book out called The Art of People. So he'll be the guest next week on Livestream Stars on Monday. And all those shows start at 7 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, all the information is at livestreamuniverse.com. And so now let's move on to the star of today's show. Chris Strub is the first person to live stream and Snapchat in all 50 states. He traveled across the U.S. to support youth organizations and conducted interviews along the way. It did interviews with people who are making a difference with youth organizations, also talked to actually some of the children at youth organizations. And he wrote a book about his journey called 50 States, 100 Days, the book. Chris, you probably know him from Snapchat. He is an awesome storyteller, both on Snapchat and live stream platforms, and has been doing Snapchat swaps. I think you call it Strub Swap Snaps, right? Strub Snap Swaps or Strub Swap Snaps?
Strub Snap Swaps. But don't worry, you're not the first one to trip over.
Well, you actually recently wrapped that up, right? And
yes.
The new thing I saw you started today were the replays of your interviews, which is cool. You're always pushing the envelope and trying new things on Snapchat, which is just really cool. And so before we get started, I'll also mention that if people want to learn more about you, you've been covered in a lot of the major media. There's interviews out there on Fox 5 New York, 6 ABC Action News in Philadelphia. Go to teamstrub.com. You can find out all about what Chris was up to. Just an amazing, amazing story. And I guess just to get started, my first question is, did you come to live streaming first, or did you come to nonprofit work and then figure out that you could do live streaming to help what you're trying to achieve?
That's a great question, Ross. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me. I am super appreciative of the opportunity. This is a fantastic show, and I love tuning in Mondays at 7 o'clock.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to have you on. You're if there's a live stream star, you are definitely it. I mean,
I really, really appreciate it, Ross. So I started planning the trip. Ross is referencing the Team Strub journey from May 15th to August 21st of 2015. I started planning that well before the idea of live streaming was even anywhere near my head. Live streaming, of course, came out last year around March, April-ish, around South by Southwest. And of course, my trip started in May, but the planning for the trip started well before then. So, I had actually gone on a trip, for anyone who knows my backstory, in 2014 as well. Traveled around and did some Snapchat, some Instagram, a lot of Facebook posts and Twitter. But the birth of live streaming and the whole movement really concurrently matched up with my departure on my journey, to the point where when I designed my business card and I designed the T-shirt, which of course I'm, me, always the one to brand. I've got the I Am Here T-shirt on. I had the choice of going with Meerkat or Periscope as sort of my primary distribution channel, and I chose Meerkat for the primary reason that their logo was yellow and it matched my branding. So
Right. Makes sense.
you look on my business card and you see the little Meerkat on there, and of course, we'll pour a little out for our Meerkat friends tonight. But the Meerkat community was so incredibly supportive last year, and it was so wonderful to get to know them and share the experience of last summer with everyone through Meerkat and many other channels last summer.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you got started, you picked Meerkat and you picked Snapchat, right, to do your interviews. Were you on Blab at that point, or was Blab even in beta at that point? I guess it didn't come around till like June, till like the summer. So it's probably, so you weren't doing Blab. I mean, you were doing like one-on-ones with individuals, and
Correct.
so Meerkat and Snapchat were great for that.
Yeah.
How were you recording your interviews? Were you just downloading the Snapchat video, or?
I used so much data last summer that I still don't think my dad has forgiven me. I'm on my dad's family plan with AT&T. Didn't quite think that one through, and so as you mentioned, the first man to live stream in all 50 states. The vast majority of that was over LTE and 4G, and when you're in Kansas, sometimes 3G or 2G.
Right.
I recorded the interviews on my GoPro. So I would sometimes stream the extended version of the interview, and sometimes not, depending on the comfort level of the individual that I was sitting with. You know full well, Ross, that not everyone you want to speak to can be comfortable with being on live video. So sometimes it was live, sometimes it wasn't. And then the Snapchat portion of it was really probably my favorite, because it really forced everyone to get to the point pretty quickly, which you'll see as the interview goes on, I am not very good at. So, I would record my 10-second question, and then I would literally hand
10 seconds, Chris.
10 seconds.
I love when you do that.
Brian Fanzo made me interview him just like that, in that same style, in San Francisco, and it was so cool to get a chance. The first thing you see with that guy, and he remembers what I was doing. So, I would record my question, and then I would hand the phone to the interviewee, and they would have 10 seconds to answer. And in many ways, this was a physical evangelization. One take blab interviews. Right. It was a physical way to evangelize the platform to many, many people who had never seen it before.
Right. And then you just were downloading those videos, before the 24 hours run out, and that's how you got your sort of your storehouse of all these great interviews, which you've shared on different platforms.
Ross, the part that everyone saw was Chris gets out of the car and he jumps in and does the interview, but there was so much more to it that I must have been 100 hours at least sitting in Panera's. And if anybody from Panera is watching, hi, sitting in Panera.
Thanks for the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, thanks for the Wi-Fi. But there were days when I would eat lunch and dinner in Panera because I was sitting there for so long editing. I didn't have a mobile office or anything. I didn't have a van that I could go sit in the back in. So I would find a cafe, with reliable Wi-Fi. And like you said, everyone thinks that Snapchat is so in the moment, but of course your story lasts for 24 hours and you could easily save the story all at once. Now, Snapchat actually changed during the course of the trip that you could save the whole thing all at one time. I actually, before that, had to save all of the pieces separately and then edit them together. And somewhere around Hawaii, maybe, they changed it where you could press the one button and save everything all at once, which
so everything that people were seeing, like on the day that you were doing the interviews, was just a small portion of your questions and responses then.
Yeah, well, there were two separate interviews, like I said. So first we
okay. So you did one on Snapchat that was like, here you go, 10 seconds, and then you did the longer one with GoPro.
Yeah, I did the longer one first, because people were more comfortable sitting down to get that out of the way. I had the GoPro and the selfie stick. I got it sitting over here on the other side of the room. And that was it. I didn't have the big, I've talked about this at length, I didn't have the big boom microphones and all the flood lighting and everything. It was really just at its core, a guy walking around with a selfie stick and a GoPro and a cell phone. And I created hundreds of hours of content. I mean, between the interviews, the Snapchat interviews, and then all of the content that you can find on my catch for the next 36 hours or so. There's tons and tons and tons of video content that really allowed the world to come in and experience this trip with me, which made it infinitely more special than if I was just going on my own.
So talk about what your goals were for the trip, what kind of awareness you were trying to raise, and how you were trying to help these organizations.
Well, before I do that, I want to say hello. If you look in the chat, there's a woman named Jane Strub. That's my mom. And so, ladies and gentlemen, my mom has made it to Blab. Hi, Mom. It's wonderful to see you, and I hope you can see what's going on here. Sorry about that. I got a little sidetracked when my mom.
No, that's wonderful.
And if you guys read my book, you see the very first page. The book is dedicated to my mom, and of course, this weekend is Mother's Day. So everyone,
awesome.
I love my mom for everything. Okay, your question was my goal with the nonprofit organizations and everything.
Right.
You know, I want to be able to keep nonprofits on their toes and allow them to tell their stories the same way that we on the business side and the for-profit side are able to take advantage of these tools. So, for many of these nonprofits, it's not necessarily that they don't want to be involved with Periscope or live streaming or Snapchat. It's often that they didn't have the resources or they didn't have the know-how, So I'm proud to say that 2 of the organizations since the trip have actually joined Snapchat. One is what's it called? Youth Rebuilding New Orleans. Sorry, I'm distracted now that my mom is watching. And the other one is Youth on Their Own in Tucson, Arizona. And both of them have actually seen tangible results from using Snapchat because we were able to push. I was able to demonstrate the power of the community and show that, yes, there are people around Tucson and there are people around the world who want to contribute to your organization who might not check your Facebook page or might not check your Twitter page every day, but they are watching on Snapchat. And I feel like there's such a thirst, there's such an energy, and there's such a desire for these good news messages, that people want to see more of these types of things on these social media channels. And for me, it's just trying to push every day. How can I use my voice and how can I use my influence to encourage an organization or a volunteer or a staff member to think creatively, think outside the box, and use all of the tools at your disposal, and not just think, from what can I post on my Facebook page today? What can I tweet?
Right.
So
for people who are may work for nonprofits or be involved in their spare time with helping nonprofits, I know Mitch Jackson's very, very active in the San Diego area with community organizations. And probably the lessons apply like across industries, but what do you feel are the benefits to live streaming? I mean, take Snapchat out of the picture for a minute and just talk either Periscope, Facebook Live, Blab. What would you say to a nonprofit that says, we got so much to do. Why should we spend time on live streaming?
Man, live streaming is a tremendous way to tell your story in a incredibly authentic fashion. You have the opportunity, as Brian Fanzo would say, to look your audience in the digital eyeballs and vice versa. There's so many more visual cues and audio cues that you can pick up on that you don't see in a static image or especially in a tweet that you can pick up on through live streaming. You're watching this video right now and you see, hopefully you can sense my passion and my energy and my enthusiasm about this topic, that you see that when I tell you about the kids that are struggling at one of these specific organizations, when I tell you about the passion that I saw at NCBI Missoula, or, I could name off all of the different organizations, but the opportunity is there for all of these organizations and all of these storytellers, which is what many of these executive directors and communications directors are, is to jump on and be interviewed. And as Caleb Maddox was saying today in the show.live, everyone has a television station and a production studio in their own pocket.
Right.
And so for many of these organizations, they'll put out their year-end list of all of the earned media that they got, not that I got, but that they got, we appeared on NBC and we were on CBS. Well, now through the power of your phone, you can press a button and you can be on live anytime you want. and you're not
Right.
you're not talking to whatever audience, whatever person wants to come in. You're talking to your own audience. You're talking to an earned community that is really engaged with you and wants to help. And as you've seen this with your show and many other shows like the show
Right.
live and everything that we all do, consistency is key. So when you jump on Periscope, and this is very important to remember, if you're a nonprofit, you jump on Periscope and you start streaming, you might have one person or two people watching, but those people are very interested and they want to hear what you're talking about. And then maybe next time it's 3 and 4. And that's how it starts to snowball and grow. And we've seen that
Right.
with live streaming, that the more consistency that you have, the more you're able to tell your story over and over again, the more momentum it picks up and the more you're able to succeed. And you can see it from my story as well, too. I mean, I've been done with this trip for almost, 9 months now. And I find myself talking about it even more, because the more people that hear my story, the more people want to support all of the organizations that are involved that I was able to visit. So you just got to keep pushing. You can't give up. I've been very, very
Right.
discouraged since the trip ended. There are a lot of times when I'm down and I'm like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? And now here I am on Livestream Stars talking to some of the coolest people in the world. Who knows who's going to see this? And it's just incredible how, if you stick with your story and you stick with what you're doing, and that's really what we've seen with live streaming as a genre.
Right, right. And I think one of the things you mentioned that's really key is that the people who lead these organizations are storytellers, right? They totally get, when they speak to their board, when they speak to donors, they totally get that it's about telling a story about how they impacted one child's life, the entire good and journey that can happen at their organization, right? The difference that they're making. They totally get that. But somehow when it comes to social media, a lot of these organizations and their websites and stuff sort of stiffen up, and it all becomes numbers and reports and bills and in the state legislature and things like that, and sort of stuffy, annual, updates and things like that. And really, it just is taking the same storytelling that they do at their annual dinner, or that they do in speaking to their board on a regular basis, and translating that to social media. It's the same process, but a lot of people are still thinking sort of the old way with live streaming and social media, right?
It was amazing to see how quickly some of these nonprofit ambassadors and these nonprofit leaders were able to pick up on the idea of live streaming as I showed it to them. I mean, I remember being at Freewheeling Community Bikes in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I was doing my thing where I had my phone set up on the table. I've got my little pop socket here, by the way. Thank you, pop sockets. And we were live streaming, and then she was like, "Can I give everyone a tour?" And I'm like, "Whoa, yeah, absolutely, sure." So, Jennifer Savar, the executive director of Freewheeling Community Bikes in Indianapolis, Indiana, one of 60 wonderful organizations that I worked with last summer, picked up my phone live on Meerkat, and I wasn't even in the picture, and she was just walking around reading the comments and having a conversation with everyone who's in the room about her organization, about how they help kids, about how they can help out. I mean, there were people in the local Indianapolis area who were saying, "I have a bike. What can I do?" And so right there was a very tangible, real, measurable ROI. Like, there was someone in the room who could directly help her organization, and she was having a one-on-one conversation with that person live on Meerkat. I mean, it was as clear as day. It was beautiful to see, and it happened numerous times around the country. And, it was tough. It was tough trying to explain sometimes, when you're doing that, when you're using a one-to-many platform, you don't necessarily recognize, how many people are watching and who those people are. But I do remember specifically in South Dakota, we introduced, or Meerkat introduced the idea of a cameo, where you could actually press a button. And this was sort of the precursor, or a precursor to Blab, where you could actually see each other and have a conversation with each other as opposed to just talking to your phone, which I think made a big difference. And it's a big reason why I still believe to this day that in some ways Meerkat has better features and better usability than Periscope. But in Longmont, Colorado, I was doing a live stream. I was playing musical chairs with about a dozen kids and we were live streaming it. And then I said, wait a second, I can now cameo. And I picked up the phone. I saw Jeff Goldberg, and we all know Jeff Goldberg was in the room.
Right.
And he was like, give me a second. I pressed the button. We invited him to cameo, and all of a sudden the kids are watching my phone and they see the Empire State Building pop up. And that's something that many of these kids would likely never see. That was an experience. They're like, whoa, New York City, I want to go there someday. And they're looking at it live. Jeff is answering their questions and talking to them. And I was like, holy smokes, this is it. This is absolutely the coolest thing I've ever seen, that we are live interactively through our cell phones, providing an experience to these young people that they would never otherwise have seen. And we're just here, eating, soup and, just here you go. Like it was that simple. There was no crazy setup. This was it. Just your phone.
Your mom actually tried to call in a minute ago, and I don't usually recognize calls because I'm always just focused on chatting like during the first part of the show. So she's welcome to call back in at any time, and we'll get her right on. But I just wasn't watching, and it was too late. So one of the things maybe you could give everybody kind of a picture of, because I think it's a little interesting. How did you travel? I mean, 100 states, 50 days is a ambitious agenda, to say the least. How did you travel? Where did you stay? What came up along the way that you just weren't expecting at all? Just in the traveling part of it, it's just kind of interesting.
I mean, the most important thing that I want to reiterate while I have the opportunity, Ross, is during my travels, and anyone who looks back at my catch or looks back on some of my other channels might notice that I made a huge error in judgment all summer long by often live streaming while I was driving. I also used Snapchat while I was driving, and it's been very, very important for me to recognize and understand how important a message it is to get across to everyone that follows me and everyone who doesn't follow me, that distracted driving kills people. It's incredibly dangerous. It's incredibly stupid. And it's something that I did a lot last summer. And, as fun as it was awesome, driving around, yay, hooray, I loved it, like, woohoo. The technology allowed me to do things that I should not have been doing. And although it opened me up and allowed me to have conversations and all those things, I really hope that anyone watching this, whether you're a live streamer or not, I hope you understand how dangerous and how important it is that we spread this message of ending distracted driving. So I know Mitch Jackson is here listening. This has been like my number one priority over the last few months. I'm not traveling. I'm not really involved in the space, but any opportunity I get, Ross, I appreciate the 60 seconds to lay that out. To answer your question, the travel was awesome. I mean, it was so much fun. I really tried hard before the trip began to get a sponsor. I thought I had an in with a popular hotel chain. I thought I had an in with a popular consumer goods chain. And isn't that always the way it works, that you think you have that in and you don't, and the message comes through like, yeah, Chris, sorry, we can't do anything. Like, it's just not going to happen. And there came a day at the end of April where I said, am I going to just cancel all this, or am I just going to go, and I just decided to get in the car and go. So that's what it was. At the beginning of the trip, it was, find the cheapest hotel I could find. I often used hotels.com. So if anyone from that app is watching, that was exciting. But as the trip wore on, the resources started to wear down, and I said, I can't afford this anymore. So I started to sleep in the backseat of my car. Not every night, but there were 14 nights that I did that. And I called it the Honda Hotel. I did it mostly in states where it was safe, although I would say I would not do it again in Baltimore. That was probably a bad idea. But other than that, it was okay, being up in Vermont, being in South Dakota and Montana. Just cut me off anytime. I know I'm not nearly concise enough, but the travel...
No, this is great stuff. The
travel was fascinating. I absolutely love getting out there and seeing the world. Sometimes I wish that I hadn't done it all alone. That you sometimes wish you had someone, riding shotgun with you to sort of see it and experience it, because I can tell the stories and I can retell the stories, but until you drive west from, Coeur d'Alene to Portland, and you see the valley and you see the rivers, you can't sum that up in words. Until you drive, into Denver, you can't sum that up in words. There's so much beauty out there in the world in those in-between moments that we always talk about, how Snapchat is so great at capturing those in-between moments, that everyone has seen all the pictures on my Instagram and from inside the organizations, but all of those hours that I spent just taking it in and realizing how beautiful a country we live in. It's been really wonderful for me to think about that. And especially now in an election year that has, it's very polarizing and there's a lot of ugly rhetoric going on. I think of America as the most beautiful place in the world. There's so much wonderful stuff going on out there. There's so much beauty to it. And there's so much more that I want to see. There's so many cities that I haven't seen and so many places that I haven't come across, that hopefully people watching me and people listening to this have gotten somewhat of a sense of how wonderful a country it is by seeing some of those things through my eyes. That was kind of my hope, but nothing can ever match the experience that you can have by going out and exploring it and seeing the world. So to answer the question that you didn't ask, I would encourage everyone to go out there and travel and do something while you can, even if it's 2 or 3 states that you've never been to. Go out and do it, man. It was an experience that I wouldn't trade for the world. Yes, I'm in a little bit of debt. Would I trade it all back? Would I trade it all to have 0 debt but not have those memories? Absolutely not. This was an experience that will define me for the rest of my life, but more importantly, will be an experience that I can draw upon forever and ever and ever. Whenever I'm having a bad day and I can look back and think about how I met Abby in Cheyenne, Wyoming, who you saw in my Snapchat today.
Right.
Like
today.
My goodness, you can't put a dollar figure on that. You really, really can't. And it's been so special for me to be able to share these stories over and over and over again.
You good if we open up the seats and take some questions either about your trip or about Snapchat or live streaming, whatever people want to throw at you?
Although I will tell you, if my mom calls in, I don't know if it's going to work. Sometimes she has trouble working the VCR when I'm not at home with her. So I don't know if the webcam idea will work, but
I think webcam's easier. I never figured out how to program a VCR, but I don't see that much trouble with the webcam on board.
Yeah.
Rachel Moore asks, do you have plans for a similar endeavor in the future?
Rachel, I would love to. I've answered this question before. I would love to. I am not literally, but almost literally shackled down at this point because of my financial situation, which is no one's fault but my own. I'm not going to make excuses. I've got a lot of things to straighten out in my life. I wrote a book, and I thought that would be, you write, publish, and then there it goes, right? Now everyone's going to buy it.
Bestseller, royalties coming in,
it's
deal,
fun,
right?
I've sold some books, and I know people have read it, and I know people in this room have read it, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate all those people who are here. I see Chris Gillentine is here, and I just adore that young woman to pieces. I would publicly like to recommend her for a future version of Livestream Stars. I just think she is an angel. So, I'm doing my best to try and come up with plans that will allow me to get back to financial sustainability. And again, I know my mom is listening to this, so I'm sure she appreciates me saying that as well. But I really need to figure out ways to, I hate to use that awful phrase like monetize what I'm doing, but I am in a bit of a financial hole that is sort of holding me back from doing some of the type of work that I wish I was doing and wish I could sit here, KP Kelly, and say, yeah, I'm going to go out and do, all of Asia or all of China or whatever it is. Like, I'm down to do it. I'm jumping out of my seat. You guys know every time I sit on Blab, right. I'm like, I want to go. Let's go. I just got new tires on the car. Like, let's do it. But
if you could find a way to drive to China, you'd be on your way.
Let's bring the car to China. You know what I mean? Like, I'm all for 100% whatever we can come up with, but all I can say is I tried as hard as I possibly could, and anyone who's got an email from me knows that I'm a pretty good salesman, or at least I think I can sell pretty well, and I could not successfully sell this trip before it happened. And that's the bottom line. And the real bottom line is I said, I don't care if you don't want to buy this idea. I'm going to go do it anyway. And you're going to regret it in the future because this is the coolest story I could possibly come up with, you know? So it's a shame.
Right.
It's too, you know, I wish I was sitting here on Livestream Stars plugging the hotel chain or the restaurant or the you know what I mean? Like it feels natural. It feels right that I could be making those mentions, but screw it. You know what I mean? This is the Team Strub journey. Hashtag Team Strub, hashtag Strub Snap Swaps. And if someone out there is watching this and they want to hire me to go do something, or, you know, some airline wants to fly me somewhere, you know, I'm down to do it. Like, let's go. Right. So sure. Like I'm down if you are.
So when you do your stories now on Snapchat, because every time I see you on Snapchat, it seems like you're doing something different. You just did the run, and it was amazing to see people giving you good wishes on the day before from all over the world. I mean, from as far away as India, Israel, Italy, you know, I forget, Australia, every, you know, the furthest places from the U.S. were giving you, you know, good wishes. And it was just really cool to see all the different people. I mean, it seems like a very simple thing, right? You're just going to watch people say, good luck, have a great run. But seeing each person do it in their own personality and coming from a different place and all that, it just was really, really, really cool. And I was wondering, where do you come up with the ideas to do your different stories and to continually do different things on Snapchat, so you never know what you're going to get when you watch when you watch Chris's
regardless
day.
of the platform, whether it's Snapchat, Periscope, Blab, whatever it is. You know, my philosophy on life is let's look at something that here she comes. Let's look at something that works well, and how can I do it better? You know, last year with the whole trip idea was inspired by seeing things. You know, seeing the Alumni Day of Service with Binghamton University. How can I take that idea and how can I make it better? Well, I'm going to go do it in all 50 states in 100 days. You know, I see that Blake Croft is building an incredible community, and I hear Brian Fanzo, who I trust and I adore more than anyone, over and over and over again say the power of community is crucial and it's the most powerful thing that you can build. So I say, how can I use Snapchat to build an even stronger community? What is the coolest thing that I can possibly do? So, you know, I know people wonder, you know, the technical aspect of it. How can you get other people to appear on your Snapchat? And the short answer is you have a jailbroken iPhone and you can hack Snapchat to download those stories and upload them. But more importantly than that, you know, anyone can do that. What I try and do is build that community so that when I ask and I say, hey guys, like, can you wish me good luck on my run? I mean, I had like 60 people reply and say, sure, you know? And so for me, I look at that and I say, okay, what can I do with this community to make a positive change in the world? You know, wishing me good luck on a run, that's cool. And that's fun. And I appreciated it. I can barely stand up right now because I'm so tired from that run yesterday. I know Ross was tweeting me about it before, but
yeah, a little rough conditions yesterday.
Pouring rain and 41 degrees. But here's the important part, Ross. That's just the beginning, because what I hope to do with that community is continue to change the world. And if I'm not going to do it on behalf of Heinz or Kraft or some brand, I'm just going to keep doing it. You know, like nothing's going to stop me from following my dreams. And if I'm broke and I have to keep following my dreams, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to continue to push and keep trying new things and keep trying to change the world until I'm blue in the face, until they have to drag me off somewhere, or until, you know, the IRS knocks on my door and says, hey, dude, like you owe this American Express bill. Changing the world is good, but you got to pay for it, you know? So,
right.
What I
Your mom's having trouble getting in. Perhaps you should, I'm going to X her out and then she can refresh her browser and dial back in. Okay.
I called that one for sure. But yeah, she's trying. The first time my dad tried to call into a Blab too, it was the same thing. So I can now proudly say that both of my parents are Blab members, which is honestly, Ross, this gets me fired up because that's what it's all about, right? I'm so sick and tired of seeing, you know, everyone trying to think of how they can energize and how they can empower the audience that we have here, when really the most important audience that we have, and Mitch will back me up on this, the most important audience and some of the brightest people in the world have nothing to do with Blab or Snapchat. They don't know what any of this is all about. So for me, that was at the core of my trip, right? Is that I would go around and I would find people with incredible stories, and I would give them the platform to tell their stories. That's what it was about. I was just a vehicle. I was the person. I wasn't the physical vehicle. That was the Honda. But my phone and my channel was the opportunity for Big Brothers, Big Sisters in Rapid City, South Dakota, to tell a story that would never otherwise have been told on Twitter, on Snapchat, on Periscope, on Meerkat, and just lather, rinse, repeat times 50, and it worked really well. So that's what I'm about. That's what I try and do, is help others tell their stories, even if they don't have anything to do with Blab or Snapchat, you know?
Well, Mitch is an awesome storyteller, so it's great to have you on, Mitch.
Surround
How you
myself
doing?
with good people like all of you. That's what it's all about. And I love the fact, thanks, Ross, I'm doing fine. And Chris, we touched base earlier today. You know, you just said rinse and repeat 50 times. And that's what makes you special. A lot of people will do something once or twice, and if it doesn't work out the way they want it to, they give up or they do something else, right? And the fact that you hung in there and you did all 50 states, the fact that you've got this level of enthusiasm that very few people have. I mean, that's what's going to carry you over the finish line. We've touched base before about getting Rotary involved, you know,
Yes.
Getting the Boys and Girls Clubs involved. And there's a part of me where I want you to reach out to me, because you can do it all on your own, or you can tap into an existing ecosystem that has to do with community service and share with them your enthusiasm and your approach, something they haven't thought of before, and then piggyback that existing momentum. Tim McDonald, who you saw earlier today, 2 or 3 years ago, he reached out to me about No Kid Hungry. Okay. I didn't know what it was back then. And I said, Tim, that sounds great. Let's get our Rotary Club involved. Rotary International is a global organization. Fast forward 3 years, No Kid Hungry with Jeff Bridges is on the cover of Rotary magazine. Okay. And it wasn't because of anything I did, but it's because Rotarians saw the power in what No Kid Hungry was doing. Rotarians see the power in what you're doing. So, you know, when we're offline, reach out to me and let's continue that dialogue, because there's got to be something that we can do.
Yes.
Right.
You got it, Mitch.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. And thank you for all that you do, my friend. I'm very impressed with, you know, everything, and I'm in your corner. All you have to do is reach out. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mitch. And great job today on the show. It was great stuff.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate it. Okay, Ross, take care.
Thanks,
Matt,
Mitch.
take care.
You too.
Hey,
Matt.
what's up, guys?
What's up, Matt?
You about to play for us? Is this going to be the world premiere on Livestream Stars?
the audio on Blab just isn't good enough to do that. I mean, it's good enough to hear me, but that's about it, you know. But hey, Chris, I did want to you brought up a point that kind of made me want to jump in. Do you feel like, especially in the live streaming world, that we're all of these influencers are kind of just feeding off of each other in this endless circle of going nowhere? Do you ever feel that way sometimes? Like, do you get what I'm saying? It's like, hey, we all follow each other and we all, you know, like comment and interact. And it's great to get to know other people that are doing things. But sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in this like influencer bubble. And it's like we're all like, we're all passionate about Blab, for example, you know, and we're all passionate about live streaming and all this other stuff. But your average person is not really super excited about any of this stuff. And if you take like even music, for example, most people don't buy music, but most musicians are trying to sell everybody music, right? And so most people just listen to the radio when radio was, you know, there. Now it's streaming or whatever. It's all free, you know. So how do you connect with people outside of the cool technology / influencer bubble? How do you make those connections and take your influence and actually influence people that, you know, could be customers or whatever?
That's a great question.
Great question.
Yeah, and I hopefully my answer will live up to it. So if you look back on my Blab page, and again, as Mitch mentioned, I think sometimes my approach since the trip ended has been somewhat scattershot. And by the way, my dad is now in the room too. So we got mom and dad in Livestream stars. That's a win. Speaking of people who would never otherwise be on live streaming, right? So if you look back on my Blab page, after my trip ended, I started doing a series of interviews on Blab with some of the nonprofit executives that I worked with. I did a roundtable that was, go back and watch it after the show is over if you want, a Big Brothers Big Sisters roundtable of people from West Virginia, Sarah McDowell, people from Portland, Maine, and people from Memphis, Tennessee, from Springfield, Missouri. And we had, me and then people from those 3 states who work at Big Brothers Big Sisters in the 3 squares. And it was really magical to see them communicating with one another. But I think the real answer to your question, Matt, and sort of where we get stuck in the circle, is that we need to continue to show the value of these platforms outside of Blab. That's why right before the show started, I sent out a video on Twitter that was like, come watch me on Livestream Stars. I sent out, Facebook posts, and, Ross has been sending out a Facebook post every day for a week. That there is, as everyone in this room right now would I'm sure attest to, or at least I hope, because I think I'm doing okay. There's absolutely value to being in this room. There's absolutely value to being here. That's why so many of the marketers appreciate it. They understand it. But we need, as marketers, to continue to show the value to those who aren't there. So people like Jenny Q and people like Mitch Jackson and people who have the keys and who have these shows should continue to try and push and continue to try and explain to these people outside who do have these, influencer spheres of their own, hey, come watch me on Blab. Come watch me be interviewed. And that's how the sphere grows, that maybe there's 10 or 15 people that want to come watch a specific guest who will follow them no matter where they go. And when you as a host get that person on your show, now you've grown the community a little bit more. We can get into a whole separate discussion about whether or not Blab is doing a good enough job of promoting the people like Ross who work their butt off, to put on shows like this all the time. Same thing with Mitch Jackson and Jenny Q. That's a separate discussion. I think the core idea is if you as a host have the influence to bring people on from outside of the space, like my mom and dad, if you can interview my dad, you've won, because he's not someone who sits on Blab all the time.
Right.
So those stories are out there, and the real skill is not necessarily, not to knock anyone in this room, the real skill is not sitting here and talking. The real skill is that skill to evangelize and to get other people to understand. And that's why I talk about Ben Phillips all the time, right? The idea that Ben Phillips is one of the very few people who has a normal day-to-day job, right? But when he walks into work, he can get his coworkers who don't use Snapchat to be on a Snapchat because they understand the value of what he's doing. That is a true Snapchat master. That is a true Periscope master. When you can show other people what the platform is about and how it works, that's where you start to break the shell, and that's where you start to see real success.
Yeah, and I think Snapchat is really a great opportunity. A lot of live streaming is a great opportunity for musicians in particular, because there is a little bit of a barrier to entry. Like if you can actually stream and sound good at the same time, I did that with Hangouts when I was back in the Google Plus days, and I did very well with that. But it's like if you can be the tech guy that can actually make things happen in your niche, that can put you above, the competition, kind of like a tick on your resume or something,
I mean, that's what Brian Fanzo says all the time. You have to stand out. And like Caleb Maddox, the excellent guest today on the show.live, would always say, use your difference and be different. Use your difference to make a difference. I specifically try and be different from everybody else. And that sounds so cliche. And it's something, oh man, be different, be different. Well, I really try and be different. I drove around the United States by myself using Snapchat and Meerkat and Periscope. Like, if that's not different, I don't know what is. So when people say be different, I mean, I use my Snapchat channel to display other people. I did 50 snap swaps in 50 days because I want to be different. I don't want to do the same things that everybody else is doing. And so now that everyone thinks that, oh, snap swaps are the new thing, let's jump on that, and I'll have people take over my channel. That's great. Now I'm going to go on to the next thing. What is the next idea that comes up in my head that I can say, I want to lead the way. I want to try and come up with a new idea that no one else has thought of yet. And maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but by collecting all those snaps on Saturday and posting them all to my story, I created something that you wouldn't ordinarily see on Snapchat. Now I've won. You know what I mean? Now I've created something that when you're looking through 100 stories, people will say, go watch what Chris Strub did because this is special. You always have to try and stand out. You always have to try and be different, or else you're just going to get lost in the noise. So don't think of what everybody else is doing. Don't try and be better at what everybody else has done so far. Think of what it is that you want to do and then figure out a way to do it. That's really what it came down to for me last summer was, man, I want to go visit 50 states in 100 days. How can I do this? What is it that I can do to create a magical experience? And so, I'm not going to get into the nuts and bolts. I might actually do like a explainer course on that, Ross. Like, how did it actually come together? Like, how do you plan something like that? Right. I think there's value in that as well. But I came up with a plan and I did it, and it's as simple as that. And it stood out and it was different. And so when Caleb Maddox says, use your difference to make a difference, that's what I did. When these influencers say things, they mean it. So when Brian Fanzo says, show you care, I try and show that I care. Like it's that simple. The answers are right in front of you. You just got to follow the clues and you win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think every platform is different and has different potential. For me, I'm okay if Blab, excuse me, I'm okay if Blab never takes off because I'm enjoying just these conversations and the relationships that I've made over the last 5 or 6 months. If I was, when I was doing radio, I could have over, 100,000 people listening and never built a one-to-one relationship with any of them because I didn't know who they were, or what they were doing, whatever. So I'm just enjoying it for what it is. But in terms of whether this is going to be a breakout, I mean, the value right now is the strength of the relationships. I mean, I feel like I know Chris really well from seeing him on Blab, and that's the first place I became aware of you. You were hosting a show, I think, that went like all day, right? You were some sort of Blabathon,
I've done a Blabathon.
I think that was the first time I saw you. So it's the connection that you make with people and how you learn about them that goes well beyond, just reading text or reading tweets or things like that. That's powerful. So maybe it's not that you're going to speak to thousands and hundreds of thousands of people on Blab, but maybe you enrich your life through a smaller group of people that you get to know well. And then maybe one of those people also happens to be a conduit to get you to the next phase, to introduce you to a place where you can reach more people and playing music or, so, I mean, it is what it is right now, right? I mean, if it becomes something bigger, that would be wonderful, but who knows? I mean, it's really hard to say, what's going to happen with Blab. Do you have any thoughts, Chris, on what the future of Blab is, where it's going, what's going to happen? I know my voice is almost tailing off. Like I feel like I shouldn't be asking that question.
I'll keep it quick. I mean, I think a lot of us in the room would agree that I wish there was a better tailoring of stories and a better way to discover good content. I think we're seeing that a lot across multiple live streaming platforms that, even if these platforms don't necessarily want to get into the curation business, I think that's where the importance lies right now. That unless you're my mom and dad and I'm like, hey, click on this link and come to Blab, my mom would never go on Blab, especially when she opens up her phone and she sees that the first couple links on there are like filled with curse words and stuff. Like there's got to be more curation and a stronger way to not just clear out the noise, but also elevate, the live stream stars and elevate the Mitch Jacksons and elevate the Brian Fanzos who are working and the Q the brands who are working super duper hard to create something that's very special that is now just being lost amongst the 100 or whatever broadcasts that are going on at a time. That's why there's such a fight over.
And that's one of the reasons why I started the show, because when I first came to Blab, I didn't there's no TV guide for Blab. There's no, like you said, there's no curation at that point. I mean, it's better now than it was, but it's like wow, I couldn't believe how many talented people there were and interesting conversations going on. But you have to know who the people are and where to find them. And it's like, so why not just start, like I thought, why not just start showcasing who those people are who are doing great things with these platforms? But, you know, like you said, it would be nice if Blab kind of helped the process along a little bit, because ultimately their chance to break out is with the top, you know, certain percent of shows that are going somewhere,
I mean,
right?
the cream is going to rise to the top, you know, and I've said this publicly. I think that what Jen and Mitch are doing with the show.live is transcendent. I really do. I do think that what those two are doing on a week-to-week basis, and there's the key too, you know, that this isn't something that you just give up on. You know, you think about Gary Vaynerchuk and years of wine library that never paid off. Well, look at where he is now, you know, so I do feel like in some ways I've created that digital trail for myself as well. Like there were a lot of people watching a lot of my streams last summer. There weren't. And my Snapchat, you know, the crazy part is my Snapchat has actually gotten infinitely bigger over the last couple months because of Strub Snap Swaps. Whereas last year there were maybe 100 to 150 people watching my snaps every day, which, you know, you're working with kids in all 50 states. I'm on the news. Like you might think that the numbers were a lot bigger than that, but I don't think of it that way. I think of it the opposite way, which was for those 150 people that were watching every single day, I created a very, very special experience. I was able to chat with them, and I was able to bring them around the world. And you're right. If there were platforms like Blab or, you know, even a more advanced version of Periscope, when I started the trip, I do think there might have been some more magnification. There might have been a little more attention paid to what was going on. But I never think of the negative. I always think of how special an experience it was, you know, even if it was just me, even in the States where my phone didn't really work. I mean, I couldn't. It's funny. If you look back, I say I streamed in all 50 states. It was almost 49 because for about half an hour in Little Rock, Arkansas, I couldn't get a signal. So I was there. I was walking to the presidential library area, trying to stream just so that I could say that I streamed in the state of Arkansas, and it wouldn't work. And I finally got it to go on for about a minute, and I'm like, oh, okay, we made it. Check it off the box. Let's move on to Missouri. So, you know, you always got to think of the positive. What is the optimistic way to think of things? You know, there's 100 people that have been in this room tonight that I am super duper appreciative for, and I can tell you just by looking at the avatars. You know, you talk about that one-on-one relationship. I know most of these people. I don't think of that as a negative.
Yeah.
I think of that as a positive, that I can pick up the phone and text or call or tweet almost every single one of these people. That to me is great, that I know that I've built relationships with as many as I possibly can and hopefully more. You know, like there's Mary, you know, like there's Dr. Finch. Like I know all of these people individually, and it means the world to me to be able to say that. You know, forget about tens of thousands. Like, I'm really, really proud of how far I've come. Really proud.
Right. Any other thoughts, Matt?
No, man. I mean, this is great. I really, one thing that I really struggle with as a very strategic planner is the relationship part. I kind of forget about sometimes. You know, I get into the numbers and I get into the grinding and just, you know, goal oriented and stuff, you know, and I'm going to check out your snaps a little bit more, Chris, and check that out, you know, because I mean, I it's not that I don't like people. I'm just like the scientist type, you know, I just like to be in my laboratory and doing my stuff, you know, and it's kind of sometimes you forget about the relationships. And definitely the one value that you can't deny about Blab and all these live stream platforms, even Google Hangouts back in the day, you do have some great opportunities, like you were saying, to meet amazing people that are doing things. And you know, it's good to be an audience member, and it's also good to be the person up front, you know. And I've been an audience member for most of my life. I was in the military for 20 years, and now I want to be the guy up front with the microphone. And so it's cool to meet a lot of other people with microphones, so to speak. You know, I do a podcast and I'm a musician and everything, but you know, it's great. And it's nice to meet you guys both. Ross, I think I've already met you one other time. So yeah, cool. But nice to meet you guys.
Thank you so much for calling in, Matt. Let's continue the conversation.
See you guys.
Ross,
Thanks.
I know we're up against the hour. I actually have to get back to work too. So unlike most of my blabs where I spend 4 hours after the fact just hanging out with everybody, I actually have to go back to work. But yeah, I take great pride in being the best audience member that I can be and being the best cheerleader that I can be. I mean, people who follow me on Twitter see how much I really try and shout out and appreciate and recognize the work that other people are doing. You know, like when I swapped Snapchat accounts with Vincenzo Landino, you know, when I did all the Strub snap swaps, I wrote a blog post about every single person because I really do sincerely appreciate everything that they all do. I mean, we lose sight of, you know, Matt is saying like, oh man, we're stuck in this endless circle of, you know, marketer to marketer to marketer, but really we're in this incredible, you know, tip of just crazy quality. I mean, Chocolate Johnny is hanging out here. You know what I mean? Like there are so many wonderfully talented people, and you got to remember, it's not just the people that are willing to jump on camera and who have everything working. Like I guarantee you, Ross, you could get an even better interview out of my dad, who's worked at every eatery on Long Island and you know, graduated from the Culinary Institute of America and has helped, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people who have graduated from, you know, drug rehabilitation programs. Like you think about all these stories, and these are things that are not, you know, the same 100 people that you always see here on Blab. You know, that's where you have to start to think, push the limits, and don't be afraid to tell people, yes, this is a great way to tell your story. Maybe it's not Blab specifically. Maybe it's Periscope. Maybe it's some other app. Whatever the app is, it always comes back to this. If you have a great story, you should be able to tell it. And for me, and I'll wrap up on this, Ross, I recognized last summer that there were not just all the organizations that I worked with, but hundreds, thousands more nonprofits around the US that aren't having their stories told. For me, I chose to focus on youth-related nonprofits, but really it goes for almost any nonprofit. That you, as one of these marketers, as one of these, you know, this indelible circle that we're stuck in, go out and invite one of those people who's never been on Blab before to come join you on here and see how awesome an experience it is, not just for you, but for them as well. You know, that they have a chance to tell their story. You know, and if you get 5 people in a room, they'll say, oh my God, I got to talk with 5 people from around the world. They don't think of the things the same way that we do. You know, have a great story and use every opportunity that you have to tell it. And that's why I'm so grateful to have been here with you, Ross. I really, really appreciate your time. And I hope that this was a positive experience for everyone who spent the hour here with us as well.
Oh, this was amazing. Thank you so much. Thanks for all you've done, for your great story, for your actually going on the trip, not just telling the story, but actually having something to tell a story about where you made a real impact, and continuing to put out great content every day, and just being like a real pillar of this community. So thank you. It's an honor to have you on. And I look forward, as I said to Matt, I mean, it's never really goodbye, because we're going to just continue the conversation over the next weeks and months, you know, across all the platforms.
So. I told you, Ross, before this started, I want to give you the best Livestream Stars episode yet. I hope I delivered. If I didn't, let's do it again sometime. Put me on calendar for September or something. Like, I love.
All right, you know, I'll go back and listen, and if I find any flaws, we'll just have to have you back on and promote and do all that stuff.
Thank you so much. And if you guys want to hear more about my story, if you go to Team Strub, get the book. It's a really, really exciting, you know, great way to support all the work that I did last summer. I would really appreciate it. And please feel free to tweet me, snap me, Facebook message me, whatever. I love answering questions about it and everything too. So Ross, we'll do this again sometime. Deal?
Thanks, Chris. Awesome. Thank you so much. By tomorrow, I'll have all the links up for Chris on livestreamstars.tv and the video. And tomorrow night, if you're around, please join us, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a debut edition of Livestream News. Should be a lot of fun. So have a great night, everybody, and hopefully see you tomorrow.